Technically, we are here for the Skaar Invasion, the fall of Shannara. Of course, Terry will probably read from something else, because if I tell him what he's going to read for this, he probably won't. This is book 2 of, I assume this is going to still be a trilogy? Four books.
See, they know.
Okay. In my defense, I got up here, and Brent Weeks is still owes me book 5 of his trilogy. He's a year late on that, but don't tell Brent I said that, okay? But in a couple of years, Terry would know this. I was saying, what would Terry do next? I came up with this really good idea, and Terry's going to come up here in a second and hit me. But it occurred to me what Terry could do with his copious spare time is he could help out all these authors who are having trouble finishing their series. No name shall be made, because this is going to go and get recorded, and I don't want to be having death threats next week. Or actually have a hit put on me. But I can think of at least 2 or 3 right now that could use a little help, so just think about it, Terry. Also, I think he's probably going to read from this little thing here. This is a book that John back there is publishing in October. We're going to launch the book here October 2nd. So I'm not sure it's actually on my website yet, but it will be shortly. So you can always go and pre-order the book now, and you should definitely come back and tell your friends, because this is a whole new thing for Terry, and we're pretty excited about it. But aside from that, please welcome Terry Brooks.
Wrong again, my friend. I am not going to read from this tonight. So I'm in the midst of, as you know, obviously, the 4-book Fall of Shannara series, which I'm going to wrap up here in the next 2 years. 3rd book is already done, you'll be happy to know, so if I die tomorrow, at least that one will be a little bit. All right, well, so that's all it'll do. I'll hunch a little. So at any rate, that one will come out next year, about the same time, I imagine, or a little before. They schedule them in June. Then I only have to do 1. And I'll do that in the fall and have it done by next spring, so that'll be it until I write another Shannara book. Right? You don't want me to really stop, do you? No. That's right. Okay, so that was the right answer. So I'm not going forward in time, but I am going backward and write the rest of the prehistory, and I'll do some other things along the way. I'm writing a story about wing riders right now, you'll be happy to know, which I haven't done much with those poor wing riders. Who knows what they've been up to? So I'm doing a story about them for an anthology of my short work, which will come out sometime in the next couple of years. And that will include everything you've already read in print, everything I've already had online, as well as 4 new pieces that'll be included in the selection. So it'll be, I don't know, 10 or 12, something like that, altogether. So I'm working on that in my spare time. And in the meantime, the other item I'm working on is Street Freaks. And Street Freaks, actually I'm not working on it anymore because it's going to come out October 2nd. What is Street Freaks? Well, hi. I don't know, half the group here tonight are either related to me or they're in the book business, and I've known them for many years. This is kind of my home store that I come to, without fail. Mostly because I'm afraid of Dwayne, but I don't want to have to live with the repercussions if I don't show up. Anyway, so Street Freaks is a project of love. I began it about 5 years ago, and I got that itch to do something totally outside the box. So I started this concept of a futuristic world. So this is not a fantasy at all. If you want to read another fantasy, then you don't want to read this. If you want to read a book, this is it. It is a story about this country in the future. No, it is not a polemic, so relax. This has nothing to do with the present, situation on either side. This is a story about what I foresee as the future of prejudice. I'm big on prejudice, not, against it. But I'm big on the subject of prejudice, and what happens when we've exhausted our prejudice against sexual choice, against religious choice, against nationalistic choice? What's left? I'll tell you what in this book, and I'll tell you right now what it is too. It's what happens when all the developments in science and genetic enable us to create human beings. or the things nearest to human beings that we can get. Not replicants, but partially human, altogether built from a test tube. All right, so then, what distinguishes whether they're human or not? And of course, there's going to be a group that's going to say, well, if you're not flesh and blood, you're not born of a man and a woman, you're not human. Well, then you become a street freak, in my story. I also broke up the country too. We're no longer the United States. You can get ready, we're used to that idea. We're now the U.S. territories, and we're divided by other issues. Anyway, you might like this story. I did. I like it a lot. I still like it a lot. It's got a lot of stuff going on in it that are familiar subjects. Responsibility. What do you do when everything is working against you? You got no way out. How do you make the hard choice when all the choices are bad? And what happens if you're human and you fall in love with a synth? Stay tuned. I'll be back. I think I'll be back here on the 3rd. No, I'll be back here on the day the book comes out, the 2nd. So you can mark your calendars. So all this being said, what am I going to read to you tonight? I'm going to read this. I'm sure you all recognize this. I forgot. For those of you who have been writing me about Magic Kingdom, are you Magic Kingdom readers in here?
Yes.
One reader? Screw you, man. All right, well, I'm going to do a new Magic Kingdom book. I'm going to write that immediately after finishing the Shannara series, so you can expect that to publish probably in 2021, I'm guessing at this point, if we don't move it up or something. I don't know the story. I don't know the title. I don't know nothing. But I'm sure it'll be wonderful. So for tonight, I'm going to read to you from Word and Void. Word and Void is a series I've done nothing with for 20 years, refusing stubbornly to have anything more to do with that series. I've told you it's done. I've said there's nothing more to be said. And now I'm going to renege on that. There is something more to be done, and I've done it. But it's just a novella, and it'll be the centerpiece of the short works collection that comes out. So without giving you the title or anything, I will just say, are you hearing me all right, or am I being too booming? Kind of booming? Like this? All right, so how am I here? Is that good?
That's good.
All right. Don't let me move. So the piece I'm going to read to you from will be familiar if you're familiar with Word and Void. Word and Void is about the Knights of the Word and the Demons of the Void. It takes place in this world, takes place in the present. The concept is that a system of magic is in place that you don't know anything about. Only those who have the use of the magic and are acolytes of either the demons or the Word know it. It's an underground war that goes on all around us. You know, I don't know if you believe this is possible, but I think it's happening right now. So at any rate, I'm going to read to you about Jack Mccall and Jack Mccall's visit to the fairy Gland, which is in Wales, where he will meet the lady, and the lady will tell him what he is to do to become an acolyte of the Word. And this is the story. On his return to the fairy Glen, he found a fisherman occupying the near bank, a man clothed in woodsman's garb and an old fishing hat. He wore boots, and his pole was ancient and hand-wrought with a strange reel attached, the like of which Jack had never seen before. The man stood on the bank and cast, then slowly reeled in his line, hitched up his rod, and cast again. Jack watched for a while and then walked over. "Catch anything?" he asked. The man glanced at him and smiled, but made no response. His beard was thick and his hair long. His face seamed and his skin brown from the sun. He was of indeterminate age, neither young or old, but some of both. Jack waited for the fisherman to say something, but he went back to fishing as if Jack wasn't there. Jack turned away at the sound of a high, fierce shriek, searched for it in the woods as a spike of fear ran up his spine, and glanced up at the rising full moon. There was a fresh chill in the air, and suddenly Jack felt a deep-seated sense of uneasiness. He looked back at the fisherman, but he was gone. Standing alone now on the banks of the stream, Jack watched the moonlight skip and dance along the rims of the waves and through the ripples caused by the water's anxious rush. An owl hooted somewhere nearby, a haunting sound that lingered as an echo. Off on his right, a long dark shadow moved within the brush, staying just out of view. And then the fairies appeared. There was no question about what he was seeing, no doubt in his mind. An explosion of bright forms surfaced out of the waterfall, silvery, twinkling apparitions that soared above the waters of the stream and skipped along its surface with unrestrained abandon. Bells sounded from all around, and bright bursts of light emanated from within the stream's flow, as if something living in its depths was seeking to break free. Jack might have turned and run if he had felt threatened in any way, but he did not. Rather, he felt embraced, welcomed, brought home to a place he had never known existed, but had always been searching for. The feeling was so unexpectedly wondrous and emotionally fulfilling that he suddenly burst into tears, yearning for it to continue so that he could immerse himself in it completely, desperately wanting for it to be true and not imagined, wanting it to be for him. Then the lady appeared, a diaphanous gowned bit of shadow and light, beautiful beyond anything Jack had ever imagined possible. She floated above the churning surface of the stream, the fairy circling all about her as she approached, borne on the night air and the crest of white-capped waves. This age thing is crap. I know, the suspense is killing you. A procession formed as the lady neared, a retinue falling into place behind her, reaching down to lift the train of her gown and to smooth the waters of the stream so her slippers may remain dry. Jack felt her eyes on him, this spirit creature not wholly substantive, not completely there, but her gaze warmed him. He saw the kindness in her face, and instantly felt his blood rush to his head in response. Then abruptly she was standing before him, changed entirely, become as solid as he was, as real as their surroundings and no longer so much a creature of another world. Her retinue disappeared, become invisible in an instant. The waters of the stream lost their bright shimmer, the bells stilled entirely, and the fairy glen became as it had been when he first walked down, as if none of what he had just witnessed had ever happened. "Will you serve me?" she asked in a voice so warm and musical it brought him to his knees. He could not speak for a moment. Her request was a naked plea that lacked a frame of reference, but simply demanded explanation and yet offered neither. At the same time, it was so compelling, so impossibly irresistible, that he could not envision a way in which he would refuse. In those 4 words, he found a promise of the moral commitment he had always been looking for. He found, too, the answers to all his questions about his childhood brush with death, about Sinisippi Park and Pick and the dragon that would have brought him down had he not defeated it. With an eager willingness that frightened him, he whispered, "I will serve you." The voice did not seem his own, and the words appeared to come from somewhere else. Yet the lady reached down and stroked his cheek, a gentle brushing of fingers that reached deep into his heart. "Let it be so then, Jack Mccall. As of this moment, you are a knight of the word. You must never forget what you are. You must never forsake me." Then she lifted him up to stand before her and touched his face once more. This time images began to appear before his eyes, a long, continuous stream of history and story that revealed in detail all that had gone before and of which he would now become a part. Knowledge flowed into him and took root. It swept before his eyes swiftly and without slowing. And yet he knew instinctively he would never forget any of it. The images seemed to last only a few moments, but when they were gone, he glanced skyward and saw that the moon had moved all the way across the nighttime sky. Know, brave knight, that your service is to be unique. It will be required once and once only. You will need to be vigilant always, because they will come for you and will seek to destroy you, but this must not be allowed. You must be kept safe for that one high service you have been chosen to perform. What service? He tried to ask, but her fingers silenced his lips with a touch. It is not yet time for you to know. Go from me now. Go to the life you will make for yourself. Go to the family that will become your own. We will not speak again until the need to do so has arrived. Her fingers found his chin and lifted his head. Know this too, Jack Mccall. All brave knights who serve the word must suffer the dreams of the damned. All must dream of the future in which they have failed in the present. For most, those dreams are of a future that lies years away, but you, and you alone, will dream of a future that will come to pass in your own lifetime, a future that will befall you and yours if you fail in your service. Be wary of your dreams, brave knight, for they will be treacherous and misleading, and not all you dream will be as it seems. One last time the finger shifted across his face, this time coming to rest upon his eyes, closing them so that he felt himself drifting into such a deep and inexorable slumber that he could do nothing but let it take him where it would. Sleep now, he heard her whisper, and he slept. When he came awake again, it was dawn, and he was alone in the fairy glen. He blinked and rose from his bed of damp grasses, shivering and confused. His thoughts returned to the events of the night now gone, and there at their forefront was the memory of his meeting with the lady. No other proof of it remained to substantiate that it had ever happened, yet he knew, as surely as he knew his life was changed forever, that it had. He went back to his cottage abode and rested. He stayed for another day, so it would not appear that his departure was too abrupt. And then he went home to discover how much of what the lady had told him would turn out to be true. I know, you wanted me to kill somebody, didn't you? But we're not doing that. Tonight, anyway. There'll be time enough for that later. I usually read from something that's coming out next year. And I had that manuscript, and I looked at that book, and I thought, I'll read something from this, like usual. And you know what? There wasn't one thing in that story that I could read that wouldn't give something away about this book. I couldn't find a thing. You know, maybe a long description of weather and force and something. I thought, oh, great, that's a good thing to read. So I decided to opt out instead for the new Word and Void story that'll be out instead. So that's my story on that. I'm sticking to it. So with that in mind, this is the Q&A time. You ask the questions. I provide the answers. You have to speak truthfully. I don't. We'll limit this because there's a large crowd tonight. I know people. Well, don't worry. We'll have you out here by midnight. I promise you. You'll be home by 1 o'clock at the latest. No problem. Anyway, we'll get cut to the chase here with book signing shortly, but I'll take a few questions first. If anybody has a burning question they've been longing to ask about one thing or another. There's my first burning question right there.
With the resurgence of popularity of tabletop gaming, has there been any thought on looking at doing a Shannara tabletop game?
Has there been any interest in Shannara as a game, particularly a tabletop game, right?
Yeah.
As far as I know, there's been interest, but nothing much has come of it. Part of the problem is that the rights to the Shannara series, period, are tied up with, we shall not speak the name of Satan, but anyway, it's tied up with the La La Land for a while, so I can't do much with it right now. We have to all move on with our lives for a little while. Anybody else? Yeah, I've set you up for this. Okay, lay it on me.
Do you even know what you're doing?
This comes out of a discussion about what question has never you've ever been asked. Now that the question's been asked, I have no frickin' clue what the answer should be. Sometimes I know what I'm doing, just enough to get by. The rest of the time, I'm just ratting around out there. It's like the days of old when I was a dogmatic believer in outlining, and I outlined everything to the nth degree, even though I threw it all away by the time I started writing. I don't do that anymore now. I sit down and I get upset about something first. All I got to do is pick the paper up. I've got a new story in 5 minutes. There's no problem at all. That's one good thing. So I write about whatever's got me upset in some other worldly fashion, and then tackle a subject of worldwide importance, like the questions of transgression and redemption, or restoring the environment, or moral choice, things of that sort. I know you understand all this stuff, but that's what gets me going anyhow. Yeah. So there. Yes, sir.
Who are some of your favorite authors?
Who are some of my favorite authors? Oh my goodness. Well, in my field, there are none. Didn't see that coming, did you? No, actually, I have a lot of favorite authors, and a lot of friends in the field too. And I try to read most of what I can of some of their work. But these days, when I was a boy many moons ago, I read everything in science fiction, everything that was out there in 2 years. You can't do that anymore now, can you? So it's gotten kind of crazy. I'm a big fan of Pierce Brown. I like him as a person, as well as. I don't like him that much because he's young and he's cute and he's a good speaker and he's all the things I'm not, so I hate him. But he's a very good writer, and he's a really good guy. I'm a big fan of Naomi Novik, who wrote not recently Spinning Silver, but she did the Tamara series as well. And in her footsteps follows Catherine Arden. She's also a wonderful new writer. Let's see, who else is out there? I'm a big fan of Bob Salvatore. I have been a friend for him years too, same thing. I don't know. I can't now, of course, obviously, who wouldn't like Andy Weir? I'm drifting into science fiction here for some reason, but there you go. Going back to my roots. And also, Jeff Vandermeer's Southern Reach trilogy is astonishing, like that. I like Philip Jose Older. Anybody read Philip Jose Older? I bet you don't even know who he is, do you? Ha! I beat you to it. Well, his books are over there. The most recent thing he's written, he's done a Star Wars book for the Del Regians. And I haven't read it yet, but I'll bet it's wonderful because his other stuff, Taxi Tango, he writes about the undead, which is not a favorite subject of mine, but he writes about a character who lives in a Puerto Rican section of New York City who helps the people who are supposed to be dead stay dead. Because some of them don't want to cross over, so he helps them do that. That's his job. He's hired to do this. What a job, huh? Anyway, he's a really good writer, and it's like nothing else you're reading out there. Very, very different. So it kind of goes on from there. I'm a big fan of Robin Hobb.
A lot of hers.
You know Robin?
Yeah.
Right, all right. And I just was reminded that ugly guy over there, Kevin O'Brien, has been a friend since I moved here 30 years ago, and is a great psychological thriller. You should all read him. He writes about psychologically disturbed people who go around killing others. It fits right in with the way the world goes right now. He doesn't have to work hard to find anything to write about. He's incredibly charming on the top of that. That's enough. Just settle down over there. Okay, anybody else have anything you want to ask? That's it, huh? Boy, what an easy crowd. Okay, yes, sir.
Do you have any characters you regret killing off, or some you wish you had?
All right, well, I haven't heard that one before. I've heard you regret killing off, but not the ones you wished you killed off. Occasionally there's a few people, other authors I wish I'd killed off. Save the world from more purple pearls. No, not really. I make those decisions not lightly. I think about it very carefully, and I know what I'm getting myself into. So when the Druids die, I know this is, It's because it works for the storyline, you know. Those who are in the most danger all the time are the ones who are most vulnerable, and they're likely to, you know, get offed at some point. And then there's cannon fodder people too, but you know about those. I just saw Jurassic Park. You want to talk about cannon fodder? Everybody in that movie that wasn't a star was instant cannon fodder, you know, or dino food, as the case may be. They all died, every one of them. I thought at the end there must be one of those guards left around somewhere, but oh no, they were all gone. That was it. So I don't know. I spend a lot of time thinking about stuff like that. I don't just, you know, willy-nilly kill people off. I don't think it works very well in storytelling. I think you have to have a reason for it, and I think it has to have an impact and a purpose. So when I decide somebody is going to go, it's not because I'm fed up with them or, God, I don't know what to do with this guy. It's because this character has served his or her purpose, and because the impact of that death will in some way affect the way the rest of the story goes. So that's the lesson I learned a long time ago. Everything that you do in your story has to serve a purpose. And one of those purposes is it must advance the story. It must advance the story in some way. It must inform the readership. Oh, sure, now you're coming alive. All right, yes, sir.
Are you ever going to write anything else about Alan? Because you got his, when he was found, and then we jump until he's much older with the Sword of Shannara, and he's already well established, everyone knows who he is, he's this massive presence, but you don't really see his development anywhere.
This is true, and maybe so, about writing about Al-Anon again. He's in one of the stories in the online grouping there, the ebook site a while back, so those who haven't read it in print yet will get a chance to do so. But beyond that, I don't know. I don't have a specific Al-Anon story at this point. I just remember the Wing Riders about a month ago. Oh yeah, there's Wing Riders out there. Maybe I should tell a story about the Wing Riders. So, you know, and there's other choices. So it's always a matter of making choices. You know, unless I go to the dark side and get someone else to help me write the stories, but not yet. When I'm dead, you can bet it'll happen, but not yet. All right. Yes, young lady.
Someone from Instagram wants to know, will there be another season of Shannara elsewhere?
Fine, get his name and his number, and we'll send people to see him. No, there's no more Shannara. That's it. Unless, you know, it gets resurrected magically by one thing or another. But when two networks drop you, and I'll get back to why in a minute, but when two networks drop you, that sends a message to the other networks who are, you know, like sheep. We all, lemmings may be a better choice, about how they go after stuff. And so if they see somebody else doesn't want it, then they don't want to be the one to pick it up and, you know, whatever. Did it fail because of the ratings? No, the ratings were excellent. Okay. Did it fail because there was dissension in the ranks or people wanted to leave? No, everybody loved it. So that wasn't it. Did they fail to renew it because they weren't going to make any money on it? Maybe. No, not exactly. It's because for one season of Shannara, they can make 5, what is it called?
Reality.
Yes, reality shows. 5 Women of Orange County, or whatever. All I can say, and I'll say it, I've said it before, I'll say it again. The books are always better. Always. That said, I missed the paycheck. I missed the paycheck, and so, you know, we're going around talking to other people in the business about some other projects. Magic Kingdom is still alive and well. We're trying to do something with that. We're also looking at Street Freaks as a project. You know, I mean, you just try a lot of stuff, and if you get one thing made, you're pretty lucky all the way around. And I just feel like it was a good experience. I'm glad I did it. I mostly liked what happened. People said, "Do you like this show?" And I say, "Yeah, you know, I thought it was pretty good." You know, they don't have to follow the book completely for it to make it work, and it was beautifully filmed. You know, same people, same place, Lord of the Rings, there it is. So I don't have any real regrets about it. I would like to have seen it gone another season or two, but you know, on the other hand, maybe something better will come along too. So that's what we have to hope for. More books, that's what'll come along. All right, so I'll let you go now, and thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
What's your favorite species that you've created, like elves or what?
What's my favorite species?
Yeah. Like, any character.
I'd like to answer that question, but I'm afraid it'll say something negative about me. I don't know. I'm pretty fond of the elves. I'm pretty elfish myself, so I suppose that has some influence on me. But I do like the elves, and I kind of like playing around with their species and the fact they've been around forever. They tend to operate in a different way than the rest of us do, and they think in a different way. And they're very ecologically positive. They do a lot of work for the environment, so I'm in favor of that too. Okay, so anyway, thank you all for coming. Usual, I'll be here forever, or at least until everything's done. What?
We're gonna go sit over there.
Oh, I'm gonna go sit over there. You guys stay here.